What's up, guys? We are back. Fitness Profit Multiplier, Anthony and Jimmy. Today, we're going to be discussing the right time to scale your gym. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that we are working with a handful of gym owners one-on-one to help them grow and scale their business so they can have more profit and more freedom. If you're interested in working with us, just click that link below, book your diagnostics call with us, and we can look under the hood of your business and see what it takes to get your business to $1 million gym. But we're going to talk today about scale. Some gym owners get very, very excited. They open up one gym, they start making a little bit of money, maybe 20K, and they're like, I'm ready, time to scale, open up another gym. And we're going to tell you the truth about scaling gyms. Both of us have true facilities, so we understand what it takes to scale your gym. Jimmy, so if I have 15K a month, if I'm making 15K a month, should I go and open up another facility?
I'm going to say no, man. I'm going to say a big fat no to that. There's certain levels that you want to get to, not only in revenue, but in removal of yourself. So I don't understand what goes on in this industry, but there seems to be a lot of individuals that get to a point where they're like, well, I'm training, 10 sessions a week or 20 sessions a week at my one location, and it's at 20K. Oh, I could just train 20 sessions a week at my other facility, and that's only 40 sessions. That's only 40 sessions, and then we can figure out how to sell and market it and get it going and all this kind of stuff. No. I don't understand what goes through people's minds when they're like, oh, we're doing 20K a month, let's open another one, when they're not fully farmed out of their business. So they still have responsibilities at their location. They're either still selling training, they're still coaching sessions, they're still doing administrative tasks, they're still doing certain things, because at 20K, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's not also doing a bunch of stuff in their business, or they don't have enough profit if they have people that are doing all these things. Okay. So I don't understand where the mind goes with that, but a lot of guys think that just because they're doing 20K in one location, that they can scale this and open multiple. So the bare minimum, let's talk about kind of some bare minimum metrics on making this happen. So problem with 20K, talked about on our episode, problem with 20K is you either have freedom and no profit, or profit and no freedom at 20K, right? It's one or the other. So if you're going to go open a second facility and you have the freedom to do that, you're not making enough profit to fund the second facility. So you have to think about security deposit, first month's rent, equipment costs, staff, marketing spend. All of these things cost money. So when you look at investing and getting into a second facility, the total cost, and we're not just talking about equipment and security deposit and build out, okay? We just talk about that, we're talking 50K. We're talking 50K to get the build out done, to get all the equipment, all the flooring, the security deposit, and the first month's rent that you owe to get into that lease and into that space. Okay. We're talking 50K. All right. If you don't have 100K in the bank, do not open a second facility. 100K of cash. All right. This may be a little different if you're scaling multiple, you've done it before, and you're kind of going through that where you're opening your fifth one. Okay. So this isn't for those people. This is for those people that are making 15 to 20K, maybe even 30K. And they're like, oh, I'm going to scale this and I'm going to open a bunch more. Okay. So 100K in the bank. That's number one, at least. That's number one, first thing. Okay. And Anthony can agree or disagree with me on any of these stuff. I want to have an open conversation about these things, because this is the way that I see it. Right. I'm very new, just so you guys, full transparency, we're transparent on this podcast, right? About revenue, P&Ls, all this stuff. I'm very new to opening my second facility. we're launching and should have our grand opening in June, right? And it's now May of recording this. So so that's kind of where we're at. And Anthony's had 2 facilities for a while, and he can talk to you about some of the pitfalls too. But 100K bank money to have minimum to fund that facility so that you have enough money to build it out and get the equipment and pay some staff and pay your rent for a few months without making any revenue. You need that safety. Okay. 100K minimum. That's what we say. All right. Next thing, your first facility has to be doing at minimum 40K a month at minimum. Okay. Arguably 60, but 40K a month at minimum, because at 40K a month at minimum, you should be profiting at 30 to 50% margin. So you'll have enough money to not screw your lifestyle up and fund that facility for the staff that it's going to need, so that you are not burning the candle at both ends to get this thing off the ground. Okay. Now, the one other prerequisite is your first facility needs to be doing a minimum of 40K a month with you removed. A minimum of 40K a month with a 30 to 50% margin with you removed. Okay. So you're not doing sales. Okay. You can get away with it by still doing sales at your first facility to kind of do sales at both, but you're not going to be able to manage both and sell at both. So you're farmed out of almost all responsibilities at your first location. You're making 40K with a 30 to 50% profit margin, and you have $100,000 in the bank. That is then the requisite, the minimum prerequisite to open a second facility. That's what I would say puts you in the best position to be successful, and the best position to actually be able to put the time, effort, and energy into the second location to get it to a point where it's actually profitable quickly.
Yeah, you touched on something that was very, very important. Is you have to, your first facility has to make, you said 40, I would probably say closer to 60 is probably ideal, but you have to be making that kind of revenue, not doing anything. Because remember, you're going to go from the first facility and you're going to go and be in charge of the second facility. You can't stay in the first one and just leave the second one off to somebody else. You can't do that. You're going to be moving to make that move. So you need to be able to be, that first gym has to be protected. You got to protect number one. That's the most important thing, because that's the cash cow. That's the one that's going to fund the second gym until the second gym gets up and running. But the more, I would say the other thing that you need to worry about too, we're talking about money here. We're talking about, things like that. But the other thing that you need to be able to do is scale your staff. So let's say your first gym is up to 50K a month, 60K a month, whatever it is, and you have 4 employees. That means that you're going to need to be able to have, I would say, at least 6. You're going to hire 2 more people before you even open up that other facility. So this way you have staff with you to get that gym up and running. Because remember, anything can happen during this time of opening. If you, let's just say you opened up the second facility and 2 employees quit at the first facility, which is possible. Anything can happen. Now what? What are you going to do? Or your manager at your first one goes. Now what? So you have to be able to scale your staff. Scaling your staff is very, very important. So you got to have a deep roster before you even think about opening up another facility.
Yeah, the staff is the big bottleneck, right? The staff is the big bottleneck of the gym industry. It's the big bottleneck of you being able to scale the entire facility. It's not necessarily lead flow. It's not necessarily the ability to convert the leads. All of this stuff is important because sales are important. It's kind of the lifeblood of getting revenue into your facility. But if your bottleneck is your staff, which is quite often the bottleneck of this whole operation, how are you going to get the people trained? How are you going to scale the business? How are you going to bring people up into those roles to satisfy so that the business continues to function? You can't. So your staff are the keys to it. We can talk about all these revenue numbers and all this stuff, but that's why we say removing yourself from the first facility. Because if you're one of the staff members of your first facility, and then you're going to go and open a second facility, how is that even possible? Right? Would you take a staff member that's working full-time at your first facility and have them work full-time at your second facility? It just doesn't work. We have these grandiose ideas of how scalable our workability is. We're still all human. So we need more staff. And that's why the way that we're set up for this venture is we have 2 part-time guys that are hungry for full-time in our first facility. We have an intern who's ready to jump on staff. So I can just pull the trigger and get them roped into the second facility when the time comes, right? So we're lined up for it. We lined ourselves up for it, as opposed to scrambling to find employees as you open and all this stuff. It just doesn't work as well. And potentially we could have somebody quit in the next couple of months. It happens, right? But we should have enough backfill to fill some of those roles and carry us through to get this second one up to par. So staff, funds, remove yourself, baseline revenue numbers, and wait for those things to happen and push those things to happen first before you're like, oh, I'm making 15K and I'm going to open a second.
Yeah. So guys, if you're interested in opening up a second facility and you want help at any of that stuff, just click those links below. Listen, that's one of the best ways to scale it. We're not saying it's impossible to do. It's very, very possible. It is difficult. It's not easy. And now you're in the business of running gyms. That's what you would shift from. You have one gym, and now you're in the business of running gyms. But again, like I said, if you want help in any of that, just click the links below. And until next time, Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier, we are out.